I think what I remember most about films is the people that I've worked with rather than the film itself, if that makes any sense.
Hollywood legend Sam Elliott has never been one to hold back, and now, at 80 years old, he's finally revealing the names of 6 actors he absolutely couldn't stand working with. Known for his gravelly voice, cowboy charm, and decades of unforgettable roles, Sam has seen it all. But behind the scenes, not every co-star earned his respect. From major egos to downright disrespect, he's spilling the truth about what really went down. So who made Sam's blacklist, and why? The answers are brutally honest and seriously shocking. Jane Campion number 6. Jane Campion. Hollywood thrives on drama, but rarely does it spill so authentically from behind the scenes as it did when Sam Elliott, with his gravelly voice and cowboy aura, fired verbal shots at acclaimed director Jane Campion. The spark? Her Oscar-winning film, The Power of the Dog. The moment unfolded during Elliot's appearance on comedian Marc Maron's popular podcast WTF. Elliot, known for being a quintessential face of the Western genre, didn't mince words when the conversation turned to Campion's film. "There are all these guys running around in chaps and no shirts," he complained. "And all these damn hints at homosexuality through the whole damn movie." It wasn't just a passing comment. It was a pointed critique that echoed across Hollywood and far beyond. Campion's film, which delves into the harsh realities of masculinity and repressed desire in 1920s Montana, had clearly struck a nerve. But for Elliot, the issue wasn't its critical acclaim or its daring subject matter, it was that, in his view, it didn't smell like the real West. "I mean, what the hell does this woman, and I'll admit she's a brilliant director, I love her earlier films, but what the hell does she know about the American West? She's from New Zealand." And that, right there, was the heart of the storm. For Elliot, who has built his career in dusty boots and wide-brimmed hats, the West isn't just a backdrop. It's a sacred space. A lifestyle. A code. And to him, The Power of the Dog, despite its critical acclaim, felt like a polished outsider's interpretation of a life he's lived through scripts, spurs, and saddle sores. His comments weren't just controversial, they were deeply personal. They revealed a man fiercely protective of a world he feels is being artistically redefined without the muddy boots and silent pain that, to him, make it real. But Jane Campion, never one to back down, gave a sharp and unapologetic response just days later at the Directors Guild of America Awards. "What can I say?" she shrugged in an interview with Variety. "He was being a little bit of a bitch, sorry, but he's not a cowboy, he's an actor. The West is a mythic space. There's a lot of room on the range." That comeback wasn't just witty, it was a philosophical jab. Campion wasn't just defending her movie, she was pushing back against a rigid gatekeeping of the Western genre. Her message? The West doesn't belong to any one person, gender, or country. It's not just about dust and duels, it's about humanity, silence, repression, power. And then came her deeper accusation, that Elliot's frustration might not be solely about the setting or the plot. "I think there's a little sexism in what he said," Campion continued. "You look at all the great westerns made in Spain by Sergio Leone, no one questions his connection to the genre. But when it's me, a woman from New Zealand, suddenly I don't belong." It was a valid point. Westerns have long been shot outside the American West. What mattered more, Campion argued, was storytelling, not geography or gender. In her eyes, Elliot wasn't just doubting her connection to the genre, he was doubting her because she wasn't part of the traditional mold, male, American, and rugged. But to be fair, Elliot's anger seemed less about gender and more about what he saw as a lack of authenticity. To him, the West is a real place, with a real history and raw texture. And The Power of the Dog, with its brooding performances and slow-burning emotional tension, didn't match the rough-and-tumble spirit he believes defines a true Western. This wasn't just a disagreement. It was a full-blown cultural clash, not between a man and a woman, or an actor and a director, but between two visions of art. On one side, there's the classic cowboy, longing for dusty realism and moral simplicity. On the other, the modern storyteller, weaving layered tales with emotional complexity and new lenses. In the end, neither is entirely wrong. Sam Elliott defends a legacy he's spent decades building. Jane Campion, meanwhile, pushes the genre's boundaries, inviting new voices, stories, and perspectives into an old frontier. But what's clear is this: The Power of the Dog did exactly what powerful art is meant to do. It sparked a conversation, peeled back long-held assumptions, and forced even the genre's gatekeepers to wrestle with what the West really means. And in that uneasy space between memory and imagination, between grit and grace, the Western continues to evolve, whether or not everyone rides along. Jane Campion wasn't the only one Elliot attacked. In fact, the other was also a star. Let's find out who it was, and what happened. Benedict Cumberbatch. Number 5. Benedict Cumberbatch. Benedict Cumberbatch was another name Sam Elliott mentioned while he criticized Jane Campion and her movie, The Power of the Dog. For Sam, however, the experience of watching the film was anything but moving. It was, in his view, almost offensive. Sam Elliott is not your average film critic. With his iconic mustache, gravelly voice, and decades of experience in westerns, he's become a living symbol of the American frontier. When Sam speaks about cowboys, ranch life, or the soul of the Wild West, people tend to listen. So when he appeared on a podcast and tore into The Power of the Dog, the reaction was swift and explosive. He didn't sugarcoat a thing. Right from the start, Sam mocked the film's direction and thematic direction. But the real fire came when he zeroed in on the film's lead, British actor Benedict Cumberbatch. In a voice heavy with frustration, Sam asked, "What the hell does this Brit know about the American West?" It wasn't just a rhetorical question, it was a sharp jab. To him, Cumberbatch's portrayal of a hardened, emotionally complex cowboy felt more like a stage play than a lived-in performance. He wasn't just critiquing acting. He was defending a culture. Sam went further. He picked apart everything from Cumberbatch's accent to his body language, describing it as exaggerated, theatrical, and out of sync with the gritty reality of life on a real ranch. According to Elliot, ranch life isn't filled with brooding glances and whispered monologues. It's about hard work, quiet endurance, and people who have been shaped by dust, sweat, and solitude, not stylized trauma or artistic symbolism. The backlash from film critics and fans came swiftly. Supporters of the movie, including many from the newer wave of cinema appreciation, labeled Elliot's views as outdated and narrow-minded. Some called him a relic of a dying era, an old cowboy who couldn't wrap his head around change. They accused him of gatekeeping, of refusing to accept that masculinity could be shown in new and vulnerable ways, and that westerns could evolve beyond their traditional mold. But if Sam heard the noise, he didn't budge. He didn't apologize. But whenever Sam and Costner found themselves in the same space, award shows, industry events, the air got cold. One insider joked, whenever they're in the same room, the temperature drops 10 degrees. They never exchanged insults. No fiery arguments. No public disputes. But their silence was louder than any quote. Sam's piercing look said it all: "You might act the part, but I've lived it." This wasn't about pride. It wasn't a battle of egos. For Sam Elliott, the cowboy wasn't a role, it was a burden of truth. A reminder that the American West wasn't born from scenic landscapes and scripted drama, but from sleepless nights, silent courage, relentless hardship, and an unshakable bond to the land. To most actors, the Western is just a genre. To Sam, it's a memory, a mission, a moral compass. He refuses to let that legacy be watered down, glamorized, or sold like merchandise. He's a man who sees the West not just as a setting, but as a sacred duty to portray it with honor. And that's why, even today, Sam Elliott remains a rare breed. He didn't just put on the cowboy hat. He earned every speck of dust on it. Sam Elliott seems to get pissed off at the slightest misdeed of some actors. Let's dig into the details of another actor who embarrassed the craft, getting Elliott's anger in return. Ashton Kutcher. Number 3. Ashton Kutcher. To Sam Elliott, acting isn't just a job. It's not just about red carpets, big paychecks, or hearing your name shouted by fans. For him, it's something much deeper, a sacred craft that demands truth, humility, and emotional honesty. Acting, in Sam's world, is a calling. It's an art form that asks you to strip yourself bare, to dig into the depths of your soul and offer something real. And anything less than that? It's not just lazy, it's offensive. That's why when Ashton Kutcher stormed onto the Hollywood scene, full of youthful energy, charming goofiness, and tech startup ambition, Sam wasn't just skeptical. He was disappointed. Maybe even insulted. To many, Kutcher was the golden boy of early 2000s entertainment. From his breakout role in that 70s show to leading rom-coms and co-founding tech companies, he had everything the industry seemed to adore: charisma, confidence, and a huge fan base. But for Elliot, those things didn't spell actor. They spelled celebrity. So when the two were cast together on The Ranch, a Netflix series blending humor with drama, people assumed it would be a meeting of minds. But insiders say it was more like two people speaking entirely different languages. While Sam didn't voice any open objection to working with Kutcher, those who were on set recalled the tension. He kept things professional, always showing up on time, delivering his lines, and respecting the work. But there was a chill in the air. One crew member described the set as uncomfortably quiet when they were both around. And one staffer claimed Sam once confided, "He's a decent guy, but not a real actor." To Sam Elliott, Ashton wasn't just another co-star. He was a symbol of everything he felt had gone wrong with Hollywood. In Sam's eyes, modern Hollywood had become obsessed with surface-level appeal, fame over foundation, image over inner truth. Where were the actors who bled for their roles? Who studied the craft, respected its history, and honored its gravity? Kutcher, with his easy smile and off-screen business ventures, seemed like the product of a system that had traded grit for gloss. Elliot believed in showing up with his soul. But Kutcher, he felt, showed up with a carefully managed brand. Still, despite the off-screen distance between them, fans were surprised to see how well the two played off each other on screen. The chemistry worked. The characters connected. Kutcher even spoke highly of Sam in public interviews, calling him a mentor and praising his experience. But for those who knew Sam well, it was just another performance. A convincing one, but nothing more. Privately, he was said to mumble things like, "He's acting like a guy who learned acting on YouTube." There's a sharpness to that comment. It's not just a critique of Kutcher's methods, it's a lament. For Elliot, it wasn't about Kutcher as a person. By most accounts, he found him polite, respectful, and easygoing. But that wasn't enough. The problem wasn't Kutcher's behavior, it was what he represented. Sam Elliott grew up in a different Hollywood. A place where actors paid their dues, where they wrestled with their roles, and where a good performance was earned, not manufactured. He revered the days when actors respected the stage before they ever touched a camera. To him, acting wasn't something you figured out as you went. It was something you studied, something you felt, and most importantly, something you lived. Kutcher, to him, represented the fast-track culture. The viral fame. The overnight success. Sam saw a man who had found stardom too easily, without the emotional depth or lived experience to back it up. It's worth noting that not everyone saw things Sam's way. Many fans loved The Ranch, and appreciated the dynamic between the older, grizzled Elliot and the younger, more modern Kutcher. Critics noted how the show balanced humor with heart. But Sam remained unmoved. He respected the work he was hired to do. He just didn't see much behind the curtain. At the heart of it all lies a deeper question, one that Sam Elliott seems to wrestle with in silence: what happened to the soul of acting? Has the craft lost its center in the age of celebrity culture, social media influence, and algorithm-driven fame? Or is there still room for the kind of truth that once made actors more than stars, they made them storytellers? To Elliot, Kutcher wasn't the future of acting. He was a reminder that the industry he once loved had changed. And maybe not for the better. In the end, their time on the ranch passed without public drama. There were no explosive feuds or leaked text messages. Just a quiet, professional distance between two very different men, one shaped by old-school principles, the other by the new rules of fame. But to those who watched closely, the real story wasn't in the lines they delivered on screen. It was in the silence between them, the invisible rift between legacy and trend, between reverence and reinvention. Between a man who saw acting as sacred, and one who, in Sam's eyes, just saw it